What if the reason you feel stuck, unmotivated, or quietly exhausted by your own thoughts isn't because you're broken? What if it's because you've been waking up every day on the wrong team? Think about your mornings. You stumble into the bathroom, you glance at the mirror, and before you've even had coffee, your inner critic is already warmed up. You look tired. You should be further ahead. Why can't you get it together like everyone else? And just like that, the day starts with rejection. From the one person you can't escape, yourself. Now here's the part that might sound ridiculous at first, but stay with me. What if rebuilding your confidence didn't start with affirmations, or hustle, or fixing your flaws? What if it started with a high five? Yeah, that kind. Wait till you hear this. Mel Robbins, in her book, The High Five Habit, discovered something that flips self-help on its head. She realized most people don't need more discipline. They need support, and not from the world, from themselves. Because here's the truth no one tells you. You cannot build confidence while constantly tearing yourself down. Confidence isn't something you think your way into. It's something you practice. And the practice starts in the mirror. Every morning, Mel suggests one simple action. You look at your reflection. Not your hair, not your skin, not your flaws. You look at you. And then, you raise your hand. And you high-five the mirror. It sounds almost too simple. So simple your brain probably wants to laugh it off. But that reaction? That's your inner critic trying to stay in charge. Because what this habit does is dangerous. To self-doubt. Here's why it works. Your brain doesn't understand sarcasm. It understands patterns and associations. And since childhood, a high five has meant one thing. Celebration. Encouragement. I see you. I believe in you. Your nervous system learned that long before you learned algebra. So when you high-five your reflection, something fascinating happens. You bypass the part of your brain that argues with words, and you go straight to the part that responds to action. It's a neurological shortcut, a signal that says, I've got you. And for the first time in a long time, you start the day on your own side. But here's where it gets real. Most of us think confidence comes after success, after the weight loss, after the promotion, after life finally makes sense. I'll be confident when. That sentence has stolen more joy than failure ever could. Mel calls this the trap, the I'll be happy when lie. Because confidence doesn't show up at the finish line. It's what carries you through the middle. And right now, in the middle of your life, you don't need pressure. You need partnership. This habit isn't about hype. It's about safety. When you high-five yourself, you're telling your brain, I'm not under attack. I'm supported. I can try today. And that changes everything. There's a part of your brain called the reticular activating system. Think of it like a bouncer for your mind. It decides what you notice and what you ignore. If you wake up thinking, nothing ever works out for me, your brain will find proof all day long. Traffic, a rude email, a small mistake. See? Told you. But when you start your day with encouragement, even something as small as a high five, you program your brain to look for progress, not perfection. Progress. Small wins, moments of strength, evidence that you're moving forward. And suddenly, life doesn't feel lighter because it changed. It feels lighter because you did. Quick question. If you treated a friend the way you treat yourself, would they still be your friend? Exactly. But this habit isn't about pretending everything's okay. It's about telling yourself, even if today is hard, I'm not alone in it. And that's where real confidence begins. But there's a second part of this habit that hits even deeper, especially on the days you feel overwhelmed. And it might be the thing you didn't know you needed most. Let's talk about the moments no one posts online. The quiet panic, the tight chest, that feeling where everything feels like too much. And you don't even know why. You're not weak for feeling that way. You're human. But most of us were never taught what to do with those emotions. So we do what we've always done. We push through. We numb out. We scroll. We criticize ourselves for not being stronger. And that's where the damage happens. Mel Robbins calls this the cycle of self-abuse. And yeah, that sounds harsh. But once you see it, you can't unsee it. Because think about it. When a friend is overwhelmed, what do you say? It makes sense. I'm here. You're doing the best you can. But when you feel overwhelmed, get it together. Why are you like this? Other people have it worse. Same situation, two completely different responses. Here's the wild part. Your nervous system doesn't know the difference between danger and emotional neglect. When you ignore your feelings or attack yourself for having them, your body goes into defense mode. Heart rate up, breathing shallow, mind racing. That's not motivation. That's survival. And you can't build confidence while your system thinks it's under attack. This is where the second part of the high five habit comes in. Mel calls it the high five heart. When you feel overwhelmed, anxious, or emotionally flooded, you place your hands over your heart. That's it. No mantra, no fixing, no forcing positivity, just physical reassurance. And here's why that matters. Human touch releases oxytocin, the same chemical released when a baby is held, the same one that tells your body, you're safe. So when you place your hands over your heart, you're not being dramatic. You're regulating your nervous system. You're telling yourself, I see you. I'm here. We'll get through this. And for many people, it's the first time they've ever done that for themselves. But here's where it gets uncomfortable. Most of us resist self-compassion because we think it will make us soft, lazy, complacent. We think being hard on ourselves is what keeps us moving. But look at the evidence. Has self-criticism actually helped you change? Or has it just made everything heavier? Mel makes this point brutally clear. You cannot hate yourself into a version of yourself that you love. Read that again. Confidence doesn't grow in hostile environments. It grows where effort is encouraged, not punished. And this is where the habit starts to rebuild you. Because once you stop attacking yourself, you free up energy. Energy to try again. Energy to fail without spiraling. Energy to keep promises to yourself. That's real confidence, not arrogance, not fake positivity. Trust. Trust that you won't abandon yourself when things get hard. Here's a truth most people never realize. The voice in your head isn't you. It's a pattern built from years of conditioning, expectations, and fear. And patterns can be changed. Mel challenges you to replace the inner critic with a mentoring voice. Not someone who yells, someone who guides. Not, you screwed up, but okay, what did we learn? Not, you're failing, but this is part of the process. Because growth doesn't require cruelty. It requires consistency. And this habit gives you that. Every high five in the mirror is a small act of integrity, a promise that says, I'm on my side. Over time, that adds up. You stop looking for external validation as desperately. You stop waiting for permission to feel worthy. You stop abandoning yourself the moment things get uncomfortable. And something shifts. You start showing up differently. Not louder, not harder, calmer, more grounded, more willing to try. But here's the question that changes everything. What would your life look like if you actually believed you had your own back? Not someday, today. Because confidence isn't a feeling you wait for, it's an action you take. And there's one final piece to this habit that ties everything together. The part that turns a simple gesture into a life-changing routine. Now here's where this habit goes from emotional to neurological. Because the high five habit doesn't work just because it feels nice. It works because of how your brain is wired. And this is the part most people never hear. Inside your brain is a filter called the reticular activating system. The RAS. Its job is simple. Decide what matters and ignore everything else. Right now, you're not aware of your breathing, or the feeling of your clothes, or the sounds behind you. Not because they don't exist, but because your RAS decided they weren't important. Here's the problem. Your RAS takes instructions from your beliefs. If you believe, "I always mess things up," your brain will scan the world for proof. Miss one email? See? Failure. Have one awkward conversation? See? Something's wrong with you. The world didn't change. Your filter did. Mel Robbins explains that when you high-five yourself in the mirror, you're not just being encouraging. You're giving your brain a new instruction, because the brain already associates a high five with success, celebration, approval. You learned that long before you could explain it. So when you high-five your reflection, your brain goes, "Oh, something good is happening." And once the brain believes that, the RAS starts searching for evidence to support it. Small wins, progress, moments of strength you used to overlook. This is why people say, nothing changed, but everything feels different. Because perception is experience. Now let's talk about the mirror moment itself. Most people avoid eye contact with their reflection. They rush, they judge, they criticize. Mel asks you to do the opposite, not to evaluate your appearance, but to acknowledge the human being standing there, the one who survived everything so far, the one who got up again, the one who kept going even when it hurt. And then you raise your hand. That movement matters. Physical action locks in belief faster than thought ever could. It's the difference between saying, "I believe in myself," and actually showing it. Confidence is built through proof, not affirmations. And every morning, this habit gives you proof. Proof that you can show up. Proof that you can choose encouragement over criticism. Proof that you're capable of consistency. Now let's address the resistance. Because some part of you is probably thinking, "This feels silly." Good. That's your ego talking. The same ego that learned to survive by staying guarded, by staying critical, by staying realistic. But realism without compassion becomes cruelty. And here's the truth. What feels silly is often what works, because it bypasses the defenses you built to survive. This habit doesn't argue with your inner critic. It doesn't fight it. It goes around it. Straight to the nervous system, straight to the subconscious. That's why it sticks. And once you start your day this way, something interesting happens. You stop starting your mornings in rejection. No more scanning for flaws, no more immediate self-judgment. Instead, you start from partnership. I'm with you today. That changes how you handle stress, how you handle mistakes, how you recover when things go sideways, because life will still be hard. This isn't a magic shield, but you'll stop making it harder by turning on yourself. That's the real shift. You move from self-criticism to self-leadership. And leadership isn't loud. It's steady. It's knowing you can trust yourself to respond instead of react. Mel says confidence isn't something you feel, it's something you practice. And this habit makes confidence unavoidable. Not overnight, but over time. And time is the point. Because the relationship you have with yourself is the longest one you'll ever have. So here's the question to sit with. If you started every day by reminding yourself you're on your own team, how differently would you show up? In your work, in your relationships, in the hard moments no one sees. Because once you build that foundation, everything else gets easier to carry. And there's one final realization Mel leaves us with, the one that turns this habit into a movement.
Here's the part most people miss. The high five habit isn't about mornings, it's about trust. Trusting yourself when things go wrong. Trusting yourself when motivation disappears. Trusting yourself when no one is clapping. Because life doesn't break people, self-betrayal does. Every time you ignore your needs, every time you talk down to yourself, every time you push yourself through pain without compassion. That's what erodes confidence. Mel Robbins says something powerful. You don't need more discipline, you need self-belief. And belief isn't built by pressure, it's built by safety. Think about it. When do people perform best? When they feel supported. When they know mistakes won't cost them their worth. That's what the high five habit gives you. A daily signal that says, I've got you. And once that trust is built, everything changes. You stop needing motivation. You stop waiting to feel ready. You stop looking for permission, because you already gave it to yourself. Now let's talk about the moments that actually matter. Not the mornings that go perfectly, but the days that fall apart. The days you fail. The days you feel overwhelmed. The days you want to disappear. That's where the high five heart comes in. Hands over your chest, slow breath. This isn't positive thinking. This is nervous system regulation. Your body doesn't understand words first. It understands touch. Pressure on the chest signals safety. It releases oxytocin. It quiets the stress response. It tells your body, you're not alone. And that's huge. Because most people don't struggle due to lack of ability. They struggle because they feel unsafe inside themselves. So they procrastinate. They self-sabotage. They quit too early. Not because they're weak, but because their system is overloaded. This habit teaches you to respond with care instead of control. And that's what makes it sustainable. Mel isn't telling you to fake confidence. She's teaching you how to build it neurologically. One consistent action. One repeated signal. One relationship repaired. Your own. And once that relationship shifts, something surprising happens. You stop chasing validation. You stop needing approval. You stop shrinking to be accepted. Because when you're on your own side, rejection loses its power. Criticism doesn't define you. Failure doesn't crush you. And success doesn't own you. You become steady. That's real confidence. Not loud, not arrogant, just grounded. And here's the final truth of the book. You cannot hate yourself into becoming someone you love. You cannot criticize your way to peace. You cannot shame your way to growth. But you can support yourself into change. And it starts with a mirror, a raised hand, a moment of choice. Every morning you get to decide, will I be my own enemy today or my own ally? That decision shapes everything, your energy, your resilience, your future. This isn't about pretending life is easy. It's about making sure you're not making it harder. So tomorrow morning, before the phone, before the noise, before the world asks anything of you, look at yourself. Not your flaws, not your past, not your fears. Look at the person who made it this far, and high-five them. Because confidence isn't a feeling you wait for, it's a habit you practice. And if this message landed for you, if something in you shifted, don't just scroll past it. Subscribe, and start showing up for the one person who needs you most. You.